And with that, let's get started. So, hi and welcome to the first interview we do for Meeting C++ 2025 with the speakers. And today it's gonna be about the talk from Andrei, which is about contracts and basically what we are currently having in the standard, and probably also there's since the submission from the talk, there has been some updates on contractors 26, I suspect. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the talk, etc., etc. But first, let's get started and let's get to know Andrei. Andrei, let's start with a quick introduction.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm the first one, so I hope I won't make a mess here. So I've been in this business for some 2 decades. I started off a long time ago, back in the 90s, in the Israeli Navy as a military programmer. Afterwards, I was in different industries. I became a civilian right as everything was going bust in 2001. So all of a sudden it was hard to find a job, yet I found a good one in a little bit amusingly, it was in shoe industry. Actually, it was a vision-aided shoemaking machine used by a Long Balance. What's their name? Something with balance in the US. You know the company I'm referring to. New Balance, of course. Afterwards, I was in various industries, including, for example, I was at NDS, the guys that used to do set-top boxes for cable operators. Now they're part of Cisco. I was at Zoran, which in a division which was doing hardcore embedded multimedia chips for LG phones. And that was back at the time when the industry used to say there is no C++ in embedded, you can't do that. And those guys immediately impressed me. They were back then in 2007, they're already doing that in a very impressive way, including exceptions, if I remember correctly. Then I had my first stint in the cybersecurity industry at Celebrite, which was about mobile phones. They started as a civilian company. They had a product which copies information from phone to phone. It was used mainly in shops. You bring your phone for a repair, you need to get a temporary, so you get all your stuff moved from any phone to any phone. They also discovered a forensic opportunity, and they went into that market as well. Then I moved to a startup which was doing document security. That was one of the most interesting places I've been so far. It was called Covertix. But one of the first fond memories I had there was of seeing a call stack in Visual Studio where I place a breakpoint, and above me and beyond me there's Microsoft Word, and I'm injected into its process. So we were using things like DLL injection, obviously, and API hooking, and monitoring behavior and changing behavior. Of course, all of this with quite advanced C++ for the time. Within about 10 days from my start there, I got to write my first Lambda. C++ 11 was still quite new, and I used that to do a single line implementation of Andrei Alexandrescu's on-scope exit, which a decade earlier took him some 3 or 4 Dr. Dobbs articles to just to explain that implementation. And with a Lambda, it was that easy. After that, I found myself in a few other places, including JP Morgan on something called the Athena Trading Framework, which was doing C++ backends for Python, so-called extension objects. I got to be a few months at Incredibuild, which some of you might have heard of. Then I went to Waves Audio in the music industry, which were doing plugins. They're very known, music plugins. They're very known in this industry. Then, less than a year into COVID, I got to experience my first Zoom-only interviews. And I went to a startup called Bina AI. Bina in Hebrew means intelligence, so you have intelligence and AI. This is a startup that started off a few years earlier as a general AI startup, and within a little while they decided to focus on AI for medical applications. And they have a product which you install on your phone. It takes pictures of you and is able to determine lots of stuff like your pulse, your don't remember all the stuff they had. They've added since then. Was still waiting at the time for them to add sugar levels. I know they're probably still working on that. That's some very nice technology. And now I'm technical lead at Morphisec. That's another cybersecurity startup. What we do is our core technology is based on something called moving target defense, AMTD in short. A is for automatic. And the idea is that we provide an additional layer of protection on top of regular protection such as EDRs, antivirus, firewall, whatever. We are the second tier, since the first tier usually stops just around 2/3 of all threats. And we work in a way that doesn't require having the product updated all the time, and the threat signatures on that. We don't stop the threads, we hide the resources that those threads are looking for, and leave traps behind. So we do catch them. We catch them in the act when they're trying to access stuff the usual way, but the stuff is not actually there. It's well hidden. It's just our traps. And now we're also introducing a new product, a new anti-ransomware product. And we're also adding new capabilities in terms of being able to store encryption keys used by ransomware attackers, so that even if you get your files encrypted, we'll be able to decrypt them back.
Nice. So that's what you currently work on.
Yes, I'm the Windows tech lead. I'm in charge of code quality in the Windows group. We also have a smaller Linux group. Our main focus is on Windows. Yeah, so we are working. We don't have portability concerns. We don't have a common shared code base with Linux. So we can do in this matter whatever we want. So we use whatever C++, whatever Visual Studio 2022 supports in a solid manner. So that means most C++ 23 features, and let's hope 26 is also coming there in due course. Obviously, I'm waiting for contracts, but not only.
Yeah. So let's start just with getting into your talk. What is like the exciting things to know about your talk? And
So basically I based my talk on the P2899 paper, which is the accompanying paper to P2900. P2900 is the main contracts paper. P2899 is a motivation paper. I think it's about 130 pages. It's a huge thing. And I chose and picked the most important things that also can fit into some 50 minutes. The main things that are worth knowing, and I try to present them in a as friendly and as light as possible manner. It's not always doesn't always feel like that, because it is a quite a heavy subject. So even if you peel away some of that, there's still things that you need to get into. But I hope I did a decent job.
okay. So regarding contracts, what's your involvement? Are you in the committee itself, or?
Yes, I've been a committee member for the past 3 years, and obviously I'm pretty active in the contracts group SG21.
Okay.
I've even written a couple of papers, not the most important ones, but there were a few. So back in, I think it was in Tokyo, almost 2 years ago, I had a concern from my previous job at Bina. If you want later, I can go into that, because that what I'm gonna mention now is what got me first to my first conference talk 3 years ago. But the bottom line in this context is that there was some concern about textual messages, plain text which is embedded in distributed binaries. It could be nowadays symbols, and it could be in the future things added by contracts. You place a contract similarly to nowadays placing an assert, and you might get the text, the stuff that you're asserting, plus all the compile time information, which is something that not everyone would want to see in those distributables for security reasons. And I can tell you that at Bina, that got them to assign this project to me, which turned into a conference talk. And and Morphisec, and this is also a concern, and the reason we're not using RTTI. So in this context, in Tokyo, I submitted a paper with a partner, which is a security specialist, and we tried unsuccessfully to convince the committee that the standard should mandate that contracts that implementers make it configurable whether those texts are actually included in the binary. Which, for example, there is, for example, a comment field. The comment field is that source code that you are placing a contract on, and there's also the source location where you're placing the contract. Both of those things might be considered too much information in some places. This was rejected out of the belief that implementers will do that anyway, and the committee believes that we need to give implementers as much leeway as possible, not to force things on them when we don't have to. And I very much hope that's right.
Yeah. How do you feel about exactly that meaningful, viable product that we have now as contracts?
Well, I obviously haven't been involved beyond those 3 years in contracts, but I read a little bit about the history. So the first contract proposal, I believe it was 21 years ago.
Well, I know it has a long history, but how do you feel about the current standing in the standard, what we are now getting out of it? I mean, your talk very much has the MVP in the title. So how do you feel about that?
Yes. So it has the, of course, I changed the minimal to meaningfully viable product. That's a hint as to my opinion about it. By the way, the reviewers insisted on me making clear that it's no longer regarded as an MVP. It's just the contract's proposal now. But it's still in a way a first edition. We're gonna get much more stuff in 29. Right now, whether or not they want to call it an MVP, it's the first phase that must go in, the same as the const expert stuff went in with some quite minimal offering in C++11, and then they kept adding and then kept adding. The main arguments have been around whether we're about to add things that are going to prove disastrous and be hard to take back. I acknowledge that as a risk. I think it's not a big risk, and it's a risk worth taking. Due to all the external threats and due to the part that I think most audiences will find the contracts useful right now. And those that don't will find them useful, most of them, in C++ 29. But we have to start somewhere.
True. Since 26 is closed now, did any changes to contracts make it into the next standard?
Well, not that I can remember. Right now, it's probably gonna stay as is because this is quite odd. In the past few months, the contract group is very quiet, which is very unusual. It's been one of the noisiest ones. Right now, it's quiet. Everyone is taking their breath, I suppose. There's no meetings because no new papers right now. There's lots to be done for 29, but right now it's pretty clear that there isn't really time to make any serious changes, and everyone is well aware of what happened back in C++ 21 due to last minute changes. Contracts were taken out, and that was back in June. We're already in August. So it would have to be some right now, probably only the NB comments could affect any changes, and they would have to be very, very well motivated.
So no surprises in Hawaii in November.
Oh, it's WG21. You'll always have surprises.
Yeah. So what are the things that will 29 then bring what we don't have today?
In terms of contracts. Well, there's a few of them. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to leave them in the short version of this talk. They could change. There's on the top out of the top of my mind, there will be labels. There, when I say will, is the things that are expected to be there. Of course, nothing is right now approved for 29.
Yeah, very nice.
Yes, labels should give us lots and lots of configurability for contracts. Being able to do lots of stuff that right now we are not able to, such as, for example, forcing certain contract semantic on a contract assertion. There will is I don't remember how it's called. There is a way of providing of supporting contracts on exceptions. I don't remember the term, but the idea is that you'll have a you'll be able to write an entire function and the contracts, the pre and post above it, as at a higher level. So the code becomes a kind of you have a logic for the contract. You can catch exceptions there, and you call into the actual function. So it's like a function wrapper, and that is expected for C++ 29. I think that's one of Lisa's proposals.
Mm-hmm.
And another one will be function, what's that called? Function types, function usage types. That's the thing that might be able to give us contracts on function pointers, which currently we're not going to have on C++ 26. The idea, it's kind of hard to understand and to explain. It's kind of providing a kind of extended function pointers strongly typed, which carry with them contracts. Kind of a bit like type aliases, but with strong typing. That's an analogy I'm making. I'm not sure to what extent it's really correct.
I guess we'll see with 29 what is coming along, right? You've mentioned embedded, and that's something what I'm wondering myself is like in such a constrained environment, will contracts have a place to be there? Because it's definitely useful to have it, but as someone, you're coming from the embedded space.
Yeah, I must admit it's been a while, but still, in embedded, you could have various concerns. Usually, it would be about performance and about memory, including code size. And this is how we got our fourth contract semantic at the start of this year. It used to be called the duly semantic until we named it Quick Enforce. Named after Louis Dion, who proposed it. He's coming from the embedded space, and he noted that a contract assert has lots of stuff to do. It needs to check the assertion, and if it's in a so-called terminating semantic, it needs to call the violation handler. This is lots of instructions for each such contract assertion, so this will result in code bloat. Not everyone can afford that. So and when you have a so-called enforce semantic, on top of that, you need to terminate if the violation handler returns normally. So that means you need to have a catch handler and have termination. So that's even more code bloat. So we need something that it is very compact. And he requested the quick enforce semantic. Quick enforce means we just terminate. There's no termination handler. So you do your check and you terminate. In officially a implementation defined manner. Again, that leeway. But again, it can be just a few opcodes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you have that, you also won't have all the stuff that I voiced my concern about in Tokyo, because you don't have a termination handler to call, you don't have those fields. Save a lot of space along the way, and of course performance as well. Now, you do have to write your check. If you write expensive contract assertions, that's on you. You're the one who's writing them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a space where I see that right now it's kind of difficult to get an opinion about contracts, in my opinion, because it's such a thing which is just there out in the open and still needs to have like implementation stuff, and people usually don't, you can do it on Godbolt, etc., but like real life experience. And it's like the whole experience we have with modules is that's like the same which is ahead with contracts, or is implementation of contracts more straightforward?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not an implementer. WG21 in general, and SG21 in particular, is always in the habit of being in frequent discussions with implementers. And of course, we also have a few implementers in SG21. Some of them are keen supporters of contracts. Some of them have voiced objections. But the features that made it in, I don't think as they are now, there is much doubt that they can be implemented. Some of those objections were eventually shot down over implementability motivations. I think the most well-known is the objections about undefined behavior, and the suggestion that all contract assertions must not have undefined behavior, which is great, but how do you do that? How do you implement such a thing? If you are passed in an object, you have a pointer, you can check it's not null. Okay, that's easy. But is that really a valid object? No one knows how to do that. And even if you if you take out all the things that you can't do 100%, a few of the SG21 members did such an experiment over lunch in one of those meetings, and they were basically left with a set of mathematical equations. Everything else couldn't be used in contracts if you impose such a rule. So it's about both usability, if you were able to implement such restrictions, but also about how would you implement that. So the things that did make it in do seem to be quite implementable, and as you mentioned yourself, they do have at least one or two implementation on Godbolt, which are not perfect, but do go quite a long way, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's quite hard to have an opinion on this, which is exactly what will happen. But I think like generally, I hope that modules has kind of toned down expectations regarding standard implementations of all the features we try in 26, because implementers will be very busy with 26. I think there's reflection to be implemented. There is all the other things in the standard contract as part of 26. So it will be fun and experience to see how this goes. And
yeah, I hope they do give it some priority, because even though this is a little bit arguable, but contracts are seen in the context of security, safety, and security, which knows, I'm sure, is a hot topic over the last couple of years. So it's one way to push that forward, and we will have more things. Another thing I remembered, which didn't, I think it didn't make it, and probably will into 29. It's a P3100, which is about implicit contracts. What I'm describing in my talk is explicit contracts. You write them as you write asserts nowadays. Implicit contracts would be about having the option of turning some kinds of undefined behavior into contracts. So if you have perhaps the thing that most comes to mind is a null pointer dereference. If you have this mode enabled, then all your pointer dereferences will be checked, and if there's a null, instead of getting an access violation, you will get a contract violation, and you'll go that way. Of course, that has lots of concerns. Code bloat. All of a sudden, any code can potentially have a contract violation, and if the violation handler is throwing that, then you could get exceptions from almost everywhere. So, and then what does the no except operator mean, and lots of things. But this will also give us even more aid in combating safety issues, because it will help us eliminate a set of undefined behaviors.
Yeah, I think contracts is definitely an important step forward to that, which gives us more options to have certain things be expressed in the language, which we currently can't really do, or only can do with different methods. But contracts then basically gives us a standardized way to do it. So definitely an exciting feature, which is upcoming. I remember last year seeing Timur Dumlo talk about contracts in the conference in Berlin, and giving basically an introduction into the topic, which is worth watching if you're looking into what contracts is. And I think then we see now 1 year later, Andrei picking up the speaking staff and showing us, what is actually the meaningful, viable product which we get out of it. Which also is always important for us programmers, which work every day with C++. So if you're in the chat and have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, I think we're now